Oh, okay.
I think it's recording.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about pretty much casting nets, fishing nets. And we're going to start in Matthew chapter 13, verses 47 through 52.
Oh, also welcome to the House of David
Yes, welcome
Bible
to
study.
House of David Bible Study. Yes, yes. We don't, I normally don't do the traditional whole collage thing, but I do need to recognize the ministry. All right.
Okay.
Again, Matthew chapter 13, verses 47 through 52. And again, we're talking about casting nets. Okay. Verse 47. Again, and this is Jesus speaking. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. In other words, you throw the bad back. It's too small or whatever. It got deformity. The fishermen don't want to throw those back. Uh, verse 49. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus said unto them, Have you understood all these things? They say unto him, Yea, Lord. Excuse me. Then said he unto them, Therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder, which bringeth forth out his treasure things new and old. And that's speaking in volumes, because you know how they say they reap what you sow, or how they say, you can't separate the wheat from the tare. That's up for judgment day. For Jesus, Jesus wants us to gather everything together. So when he comes, he separates and says what's good and what isn't. We don't know what's good and what's good and what isn't. Just because something looks deformed doesn't mean that it isn't good. So if you see someone homeless on the street, that doesn't mean that they're not a good person. Just because they smell bad, or dingy and all this other stuff. So we can't make that decision about one another. Our job is to bring in as many as we can to the kingdom of God. And as I was speaking of, talking about nets, I did a little research on fishing nets. Excuse me, because I got a little cold, so that's why I keep breathing in and out. I looked up fishing nets, and for those of you who truly know the spiritual realm of God and the things of how things work in His Word, this should ring a bell to you once I read them out. Excuse me. Types of fishing nets. One is called a landing net. Now, this net is only used for one. It's used for the big catch, like your swordfish and all those other big fish out in the big sea. So if you're looking for that big one, this is the type of net you would use. You first would get your fishing rod, you hook it out there, you try to reel them in, and these are the catches that really take a long time. So I mean, some of these people are like, hey man, I spent like 4 or 5 hours trying to pull this thing in. So when you finally get it close to the boat, you take this net, and of course you're gonna need help. Of course, you get your buddies to take this net, pull it out there, and try to reel this thing in, so you can stop fighting with it all the time. And that goes again with our walk. As far as ministry goes, we try and pull people in, not try to catch them away, but pull them in, casting them in. Just as the fishing goes, you pull them in, and again, that fish net. And then the reason why I say it's the one, because sometimes you always have that one person that's really, really hard for you to turn to God, or to Jesus, because they're battling with so much stuff in their past that they feel that they're not worthy, or some of them just don't want to. So sometimes it takes a lot of work just to get that one person in. So that's the kind of net that's called the landing net.
And that's that is pretty deep when you say landing net, because literally you're pulling them into land. You're pulling
Mm-hmm.
them into like a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they're not out there anymore.
Right.
Some people can still be out there, but still, it's easy for you just to, like you said, I know you're going to go into other nets or whatever, but it's easy for you just to dip in and just pull them right back out.
Right.
But other people, it's like, they've been out there for a while.
Right.
And things that you would pull into a landing net is like a shark,
Right.
or a
So something big. That's
whale, or
sometimes a
something
big
like
catch.
that. So something that has actually been out in the deep
Right.
areas.
Yeah, and it's got you have to put in more work on it. It's not just something that simply you can just scoop up and go.
Because first of all, now the reason why I was saying that is that most of them have a higher intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have the ability to know this is a net,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting out of this.
Right.
I'm not.
So that's
I
why you
already
got to reel them
see.
in first.
Right. I already see what's about to happen. So yeah, it is true. Sometimes when you are trying to pull someone in, and most of the time, like I said, they know.
Right.
So that's someone who already knows God.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally representative of someone who's already knows God, who's probably fell away,
Mm-hmm.
and is actually returning.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so uh, pulling them in is not going to be as easy.
Yeah.
Because they already, and especially when you're dealing with someone with a reprobate mind,
Mm-hmm.
set or something like that, it's just that you really have to remain silent a lot and
Right.
just be the example.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And let the Holy Ghost go ahead and do His work.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. And then the second net is called a bait whale net. This net is used to catch smaller fish, but again, it's when you catch smaller fish, you catch them in abundance. So the holes of the net are not twine like wide like the first net, the landing net. The holes in this net are much smaller, so it can hold on to all those fish. So when you bring those smaller fish in, yeah, you're gonna bring in a lot of water and whole lot of other stuff with it, because you're literally putting this net out there, and as your boat is moving along, it's dragging and gathering up everything in its path. So when you bring it in, again, this is a multitude. This is why Jesus said he will teach his disciples to be fishermen of men, because he's saying get the multitude up, bring them all in. So when I come back, I'll be able to see what is good and what isn't good. We're gonna get into a scripture that truly defines that.
That's pretty deep there too.
Later.
Yeah. Good, what's good and what's not good, because then that goes back into what you're saying. Don't be trying to judge yourself on what's good and what's bad. Right. God's gonna, do that judging later. Just pull them all in regardless.
Just pull them all in regardless. I mean, because somebody's a drunkard, maybe, and this is a controversial thing I'm about to say, just because they're gay.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You have to bring them in. Let them know God, and maybe them knowing God will change them.
Right. So let the Lord do the work.
Yes, let the Lord do the work. Bring them in. Like he
Right.
said, the battle is his, not yours. You just do. I'm sorry. You just do the work. You just do. I talk with my hands.
No, but you're shaking the camera.
I know. You do the work, and let God. You do the work as far as bringing them in, and then let God put His blessed hand upon them in their mind and their hearts to change them according to His will.
And you know what, that when you said that type of net, and how you said that basically the boat goes forward and it basically drags this net along the back. I mean, that to me, that's representative of kind of like when you're just moving forward, and then people just end up gravitating towards you, and that's somebody that really never took any effort for you to bring them into God. They just saw something there and say, oh, I see something about you is different, or they know by your conversation, and then they may be going through something, and they'll say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? I need to, say something or get something off my shoulder. That's like somebody who is in that type of net that just kind of like gravitated to you. Why? Because you're just moving forward in Christ, and because of the fact that you're going in a specific way.
Right, and it doesn't. And this is the kind of thing that, like it says. I mean, the net has small intertwined, so the fish can't escape. So when the fish is in there, they're in there. You're bringing them up. So when again, when you bring them in, it's like it's not that much work. That's why the netting twines are so small, because it's saying that this is, it's not saying that the person is a small person, but the works that it will take for you to bring that person in is not going to be that great, because that person is already seeking.
Yeah, they're already ready.
Right. So it's
Mhm.
like they're seeking. So you're bringing them in to say, hey, you asked me this question. Let me show you what I know as far as
Mhm.
the word goes, and then allow God to do his thing. Okay.
Right.
Now, the third net is called a seine net, SEINE. It's known as seine, also a casting net. Again, we're casting a net. But this one is mainly what, John, not John, but Peter and all those guys. This is the type of net that they were using, because what they would do, they would get out on the in their little boats, but they wouldn't go out too far, because these boats weren't made to go out too far. So they would use these type of nets in shallow waters.
Mm.
And when you see shallow waters, you already see your catch. You already know what it is. You can see the fish literally swimming about you. So this net was just, I mean, again, it's used to cast out into the waters. This is the type of net like you throw along the side. That's why Jesus told him to cast this net on the other side. It's like, wait a minute, there's no fish over there, they're over here. Again, you cast it on the other side, but it takes more than one. You have to use two or three men to use this net.
I
Go
got
ahead.
something
Go
though
ahead.
too, really quick, because you just said, remember how they were casting on one side, and then he said no, cast on the other. Right, stopping right there.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, initially they were doing what, they were casting in a familiar place
Mm-hmm.
where fish were known to be.
Right.
So if you try to put that to today's time, there's some people who will literally go into a church
Mm-hmm.
and try to minister to people who are already in a ministry,
Right.
or they'll try to pull them out into their,
That's
like
their
their
ministry.
ministry,
Right.
and it's like God's like saying, like, no, no, no,
No, no,
no,
no.
you don't go into a pool where these people are already seeking God and they're already sitting underneath a ministry and go and try to pull them out.
Mm-hmm.
Cast your net on the other
Other side.
side.
To those who don't know me, that's why
Exactly.
he said, I came for those who are lost. And
Exactly.
that's what he wants you to find. Familiarity, yeah,
Familiarity.
familiarity is something we kind of get accustomed to. We don't want to go out and talk to that drug dealer standing on the corner. We don't want to
Right.
go talk to, the guys sitting in prison. These are things we all like. Oh, those. I don't want to be around all those. Those are spirits and all those crazy spirits. I want to bring nothing back with me. God will prepare you when it's time for these things. I'm not saying to go out and do it. If you're not prepared for it, God hasn't prepared you for it. Don't do it, because yes, then those spirits will, jump on
Right,
you and
because he
do
said to
something.
cast the net. Now
Right.
he will tell you where to cast the net
Exactly.
to.
He will
Yeah.
tell you to cast a net, but for some people, that is their ministry, to go out to these prisons, to go out to these street corners, and talk to people and try to pull them in.
Hmm.
Again, these are shallow waters. You see what the catch is already.
Right.
You see the drug dealer on the street. You know that he needs God in his life. You know that the prostitute needs Jesus in her life.
And I'm not going to even go just there. Let's just say we're at work,
At work,
and
yeah, exactly.
you have a coworker. I mean, it
Exactly.
doesn't have to always, you don't always see with your eyes.
Eyes, right.
You know that someone's going through something. Period.
Exactly.
Or even in a library, in a grocery store, or
Right.
whatever.
Sometimes you can see stress on people.
Yeah, and then if you feel that urging on your heart
Hmm.
to minister to someone, then you know that it's time for you to cast your net.
Right. Absolutely.
But then, like you had said, that type of person, it's going to be easy for you to pull them in, because it's at that moment, it's at that time
Right.
where they need God. Mhm.
Exactly. And these are more larger fish than the bait whale. Again, the bait whale is for the smaller fish who
Mhm.
is a bigger multitude.
Mhm.
This is for the medium-sized fish, not too big, not too small, but you see it right there. It's kind of like a trout, or a bass or something. You see it right there. You want to pull it in. That's what the seeing net is for.
Mhm.
Okay. Now our next scripture we're gonna go to is Ezekiel 47. Ezekiel 47, and I'm going to read verses 8 through 12. Like I said, some of these scriptures will read out and ring a bell to you when it's talking about casting of the nets, because this is work we have to put in to understand what Jesus has come to do. And and there's a bombshell later on in this lesson that's going to drop heed to all of us. Okay. Okay, Ezekiel 47, verse 8 through 12. Verse 8 reads, Then said he unto me, These waters issue out toward the east country, and go down into the desert, and go into the sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the waters shall be healed. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the river shall come, shall live. In other words, you're moving with the flow. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh.
Mm.
Verse 10, And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from Engedi even unto Engoleman. They shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kind,
Mm.
as the fish of the great sea, exceeding many. But the merry places thereof, and the marshes thereof shall not be healed, they shall be given to salt. Verse 12, And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issue out of the sanctuary, and the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. So it is saying, you pull them in, whether this side or that side. And that's what Jesus will do. He will separate left and right, good and bad, however you want to categorize it. And those on this side get the meat and they have their medicine for healing.
Mm-hmm.
These over here, those are the castaways. Okay, so I mean the scriptures is basically as it can be. Um, I want to jump back to Matthew only because Matthew has a lot of what we're dealing with today in these scriptures. And I will reference that you read Habakkuk. I always have problems with this one.
Habakkuk.
Habakkuk,
Mm-hmm.
Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 15 through 17, and it will ring a bell. And I'll come back and I'll read that later on at the end, but I just want to reference that now so that you'll have a chance to read it as well. Now we're going to go back to Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but because it's pretty long. I guess I could read it all. It's verse 31 through 46. And if you need me to stop at any time, go ahead and stop me, okay?
Okay.
So Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 46 reads, When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and now this is the bombshell that I was talking about, okay? And when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was a hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was a prisoner, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when was thy sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? Now this is them like, we don't even remember doing this, God. I mean, what are you saying to us? And he's going to answer them, saying, And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. That's telling you right there. Cast your nets, because you don't know, and you don't want to separate anything, because that's what he's telling you. Let him be the judge of that. Cast your nets, bring as many as you can in, because he's saying, no matter who it is, if you do unto them as you're supposed to love one another, you have done it unto him. And that's what he's saying. Regardless of their statutes, their the social rankings, or whatever you want to classify people as, no matter how you see them, bring them in, great or small, however you see it, bring them in to God. Verse 41, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hunger, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, and athirst, or a stranger, naked, sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. Jesus is telling you right there. He's the one that's gonna separate. He's gonna say, sheep to my left, goats to my right. And the sheep, the ones like as in Ezekiel said, these are the ones that are gonna get the meat, like that. And Revelation says that everlasting gospel from the angels. That's that meat that he's speaking of. The leaf is the medicine, meaning you won't ever be sick again. You don't have any worries. You're in heaven, so you're gonna be blessed eternally over here. If you're separated to the right and then ones to the left, it's like, and these are the ones like, again, who don't do unto the brethren as they should, or the sisters as they should. Seeing them hungry is like, when was the last time one of us had a co-worker, family member, excuse me, come to them and say, I don't have any food in my house. Could you loan me $50, or I need to pay this bill, loan me $50? Or see the homeless guy sitting down there asking you for something to eat, and you're holding a bag of Popeyes, somebody you ain't got anything. It doesn't compute. That's what Jesus is saying. You have to be reasonable with what we're doing to one another, because we're all blessings to one another. And when you don't give back what God has gave you, again, people, you want to talk about tithing? This is tithing. God blessed you with something. You have to give it back in a way to say whether or not you want to. Because if you can sit there and you can money wise give tenth of your income, which we still don't do correctly because we give it after taxes, not before taxes, but we give the government what they want before taxes, but God, he gets what's left after taxes. It doesn't compute. So you should always compute what you gross before you compute that tithe anyway. But you want to sit there and give the tithe, the 10%, the money wise, but the trueness of it all is what God's saying is give back to me what I gave to you. If I gave you a blessing, if I gave you a job, whether it's paying well or not, I did give you a job to help you live, to help you pay your bills, to put food in your cabinets, clothes on your back, to have a car, to get around, however you may see it, to go do nice things, go on vacations, go to a movie or dinner. He gave you these things as a blessing, but yet you can sit there and enjoy a meal out at Outback, Cheesecake Factory, or wherever you want to go, and see someone in need, family member, homeless, wherever you want to be, and tell them that you don't have it or you don't even want to give it. So you just try to ignore them altogether. Or I'm not answering their calls because all they're doing is asking for money. You don't truly know what that person is going through. You truly don't know. I had the same issue when I was homeless. I was asking my family for money, trying to pay my bills. No one wanted to give to me. And what happened? I ended up homeless because they didn't give back the blessing that God had already gave them.
Yeah.
I'm not condoning them, condemning them for it. That is for God to decide what is what. I mean, for me to go through that, it was a blessing for me to even go through the homeless situation because I came out stronger on the end. You know, God had worked with me through that whole ordeal, and I came out stronger in the end. So I thank God for even being homeless because it helped me in the end. So, but I know someone has something to say here, but go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, or thinking is that I think that sometimes we don't really, we focus so much on the rules
Right.
and the regulations that people put on you for
Mm-hmm.
salvation when God is speaking in a whole nother realm or a whole nother area of what his expectations
Mm-hmm.
of you are. And we miss it
Right.
because we're focused on the wrong things, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be, you're focused on making it to church every Sunday, going to, Sunday school, making sure that you're in a specific ministry, whether it's the outreach ministry or the choir or something like that. And we think that since we have this checklist of things that we're doing in our life,
Mm-hmm.
like, I attend this, I do that, I do that, I do that, and they think that they've got it pretty much covered.
Mm-hmm.
That God is going to say, come on in, you done well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put all of that and compare it to what he was just saying right here, none of that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
None of that mattered. What he said was, is that how did you treat someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go off and did you help somebody else? It's just like when the Lord has said, don't worry for the things, don't,
Of today, that tomorrow will take care of itself.
tomorrow take care of itself. And then he said also too that he would clothe us, he would feed us. Look at the birds, look at the
Mm.
animals. He provides for them, right?
Yeah, that's some joke.
He provides for them based off of the earth yielding what it's supposed to yield,
Correct.
right? So us, we no longer just eat off of the land. We
Mm.
depend on each other to till the land
Mm-hmm.
and produce,
Right.
right? So you are the one that is supposed to yield to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm supposed to yield to you.
Correct.
But if I'm not doing that, then you're in lack.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has said, I wish that no man
And being like.
be in lack. And the reason why that's even happening is because why we're not giving to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not providing for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because, yeah, we may have gotten burned here and there. Someone might have hustled you out of your money or out of your time or whatever it might be. But the thing about it is that God is saying still, you're not to judge even that.
Mm-hmm.
Keep moving forward, keep pressing forward, keep
Mm-hmm.
doing,
And this is all about.
don't be weary in well doing,
And this is all about casting the net out.
Right.
Because when you cast that net out, whether someone did you wrong in the past or not, cast that net out and show them, as God says, you'll be known by your works.
Right.
You'll be known by. You don't have to tell anybody what you did. You don't have to, put up a banner of all your accomplishments. How people put a list down on their resume, all the things that they did. You won't need that. Your works will speak for themselves.
Yes, it will.
I mean, giving to someone and not asking for it back. That's the whole deal, because in my opinion, if someone asks me for $50 today, I know they need it, and when they need it, more than likely they probably won't be able to pay it back for a while. And if they do pay it back, it probably put them back where they started.
Right.
So the whole system of you know like God said, if you have it, give it to your brother. Now it does say, yeah, he should pay it back, but you shouldn't look for him to pay it back. That's what the scripture is telling you. Like if he pays it back, all is well. But if he doesn't, he doesn't. It's still you blessing somebody. And maybe if he doesn't pay you back the $50, maybe he paid it or she paid it to someone else that might have needed it. So don't be bitter about what somebody did or didn't do according to what you gave them. Because if you give someone showing them good works, I guarantee you God will start working in that person because they see God in you and they see God in the blessing that was received from you, whether it be money, food, clothing. A lot of people, with kids that need clothing, they will see that. And just like that movie Pay It Forward. You do a good deed for somebody, and what they do in the movie, they say, hey, I did this for you. They say pay it forward. In other words, the next time you see somebody in need or in trouble or need of help, you sacrifice yourself, your time, and everything else to help them. And then when you tell them, pay it forward. And that's what that movie is about. I love that movie because it was just about everybody blessing themselves, and it just comes around full circle. And that's
Right.
the whole thing about it all. It's just helping one another, casting those nets, because even you know when we speak about casting nets, he says bring everybody in. you know he had 12 disciples. Well, I take that back. He had 12 apostles, many disciples, and he sent them all out to do something different.
Right.
He sent them all out with a different type of net. They all had different types of nets to go fishing with. Paul had his ministry. James had his. Peter had his. Uh, what's the other guy? Believe it or not, there was another Judas. There was two Judases. Um, you just had so many disciples, but they all had their different callings, their different nets to go out and cast amongst many people. And even reading through the works of Paul, look at the ministries that he developed and built in all the different countries, from Galatians, Corinthians, Hebrews, and all those places where he went. Look at in Romans. I mean, look at all the stuff that he did. Nothing was the same. But why? Because certain people call for a certain discipline. So we can't knock other disciplines of Christianity. We all have our faults. No one's 100% correct on the Gospels. I mean, we all get it wrong. As God says, we all fall short of His glory.
Right.
So to sit here and say, "Oh, the Baptists are crazy," Yahoo people, and the Episcopals, that they're wackos, and as Jesus said, if they're not against us, they're for us. So, however they are doing it to bring people into God, again, we all are judged on our works as well. So if we're misleading people, we're going to be judged upon that. So let God do the teaching once you get it in. Bring them in and let God start working within that person.
And another thing too, you'll find yourself in a tailspin
Right.
if you're only trying to minister to someone based off of a checklist.
Exactly.
You're going to find yourself in a tailspin because you're literally doing what God said that He came to undo.
Undo.
Because you're literally trying to put some people underneath the law.
Law.
That's like going into Africa, at the times of when they was gathering slaves and hitting someone over the head and putting some shackles around their legs and dragging them along.
Mhm.
That's not a net.
Right.
That's shackling someone to
Exactly.
something and putting them underneath a slavery,
Mm-hmm.
and then they find, and then trying to convince them this walk and this way of doing things is the right thing to do.
Right.
And you can't do that. You have to be, uh, they have to be willing,
Right.
willing to come.
Right.
There's no way to even pull them in if they're not willing to come. They're gonna just leave,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
it's like that. Because like you had said too, with the big fish, he already knows. He knows what the shore is. The shore means that I'm dying to something and I'm moving on to something else. So hey, I'm not trying to go there right now because I already know what's about to happen. So you got to come at them, like you had said, in a different way. So you can't come to them putting shackles on there because they're like, hey, don't shackle me up. I don't want to be bound up. I don't want to be shackled up. Don't do that to me. I know what that's like, and I'm going to walk away. You got to come to them and understand that literally this word, this teaching, and what God is telling us to do is not binding you up.
Right.
It's not binding you up into that net. That net is not a physical thing.
Right. Yeah. It's a it's a release um, from your environment
Right.
in which you are a captive of. We're all a captive of our own society, and and to think about the things in which we hold as value to our everyday of living means not much when it comes to God, because the things we even do in our own lives, not even considering the uh, the religious part of it all, you know, our schedules, our work, our families. These are all things that truly put a hindrance on freedom. I mean, whether you believe it or want to believe it or not, it puts a hindrance on it, because you can't go and just do anything and everything you want to do because you have others to take care of. You need to go to your job to make sure your bills are paid. These are the things that, again, boundaries within our lives. And that's why if you truly spiritually think about the fishing net, you're taking a person out of their environment. That fish is no longer in the sea. You're pulling it out of an environment to something truly new to itself, a passing on of the old into something new. And again, that the sacrifice of it all is leaving all of that old environment behind, because you can't bring it with you, as Jesus said. No flesh shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. So you can't think the same way. You can't be the same way if you want to inherit the kingdom of heaven. You have to have new thoughts. You have to be, as Paul said, renew yourself every day. I'm renewed every day. That's the mindset we need to have. Again, it's not about denominations. It's not about um, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. It's about God. And that's what we need to keep the focus on, and stop allowing different religions and different denominations to hinder us from growth.
Separate us.
And separate us, correct. Because the funny thing is, we all believe in Jesus and we all believe in God when it comes to the Christian faith. And yet, we all seem to not get along. We all seem to say one another is doing something wrong. Those people are not right. These people are not right. But how can you think the same but be different?
Right.
I mean, the only difference is you, you all have different rules. Again, these bylaws that Jesus told the Pharisees, you guys are outside of the will of God.
Right.
These things mean nothing to the growth of someone's spiritual life.
And like you had said, it's about unity. It's about a coming together.
Right.
It's actually about, like he had said, he cast his net, and where his net pulled in, it pulled everybody in. Like you had said, it doesn't matter who it pulled in, it pulled everybody in. God will go through that batch to see who shouldn't be here and who
Right.
should be here. And so, even saying that, some people who you would think, oh, that person's going to make it, they just may not make it
Right. Because we don't
because
know. We're not a
we
judge.
don't know. We're not the judge. God is the judge. So you cannot judge someone based off of these,
Mhm.
based off of any of your five senses. You can't judge someone and say, you're saved. You're not.
Right.
You're saved. You're
Right.
not. Because of the fact that you don't have some sort of a, you don't even have an inkling
Yeah.
of what God's
Yeah.
judgment is
We,
going to
we, we,
be.
we may be condemned ourselves, sitting up here trying to say
Right.
who is it, who
Saying
isn't,
someone else
and,
is or
and we
isn't, and
may be
it's like,
going to hell ourselves.
that's the reason why he tells you to work out your
Our
own soul
soul
salvation
salvation.
with fear and trembling, because of the fact that if you're not paying attention to what's going on with you, you might miss it.
Hmm.
And what you're supposed to be doing concerning everyone else is just loving them.
Right.
It's just loving them and just being open, letting people know what your testimony is, letting people know what God has done for you in your life
Hmm.
and how He has been in your life and what you've learned in His Word and how the peace and the joy that you have on this side of life.
Hmm.
These are the things that we're supposed to be sharing with people, not putting them on, putting on some sort of a shackle on the person and
Hmm.
saying, okay, you need to be bound up with me. Like on a chain gang. We
Right.
all, like how they used to do next to each other, chain this link. Okay,
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and bind somebody else to this other leg,
Right.
and it's like, no, you can't do that.
And let's get an understanding. The reason why God was so adamant about not making any kind of formal image of him, like whether it be gold or wooden or whatever, is because now you're putting him in a box. Now you're putting limitations on him.
Right.
And when we come up with our bylaws in our ministries, it kind of hinders the growth of the people. I would say follow the scriptures and allow God to teach those who need to be taught and those who want to be taught. Because when you tell somebody that they, you know, oh, if you can't speak in tongues, you're not saved. If you are, like the Baptist say, you can't go to another church. Because some of us, are knowing that, hey, this ministry is not working for me, or I have outgrown it. I need to move on. With the Baptists, for the most part, they say that you can't leave unless you get a written consent from that minister saying that he releases you from his church. I don't belong to the minister. I belong to God.
Right.
So these are the things that I'm talking about that hinders people's growth, and it shouldn't matter if I've outgrown this place. I'm going to move on to the next thing, and that's what the evolution of spirituality is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying, oh, master, can I move on? Because
Right.
the
Right.
preacher doesn't. He's there to teach you what he knows, what God has taught him, and he's there to pass that knowledge on.
Right.
Now, it would be wrong for me or any other pastor or minister or bishop to sit up there and say, "Hey, you're not ready.
Right.
You need to sit up under me until you're 60 years old. By the time I turn 80, I relinquish my ministry onto you." No,
Right.
Jesus didn't do that to his disciples.
Right.
He didn't say, you know, y'all have to wait until I'm dead and gone to start ministry. And he sent them out.
Right.
He sent them out two by two. Is like, hey, y'all need to go and do this. Boom, boom, boom. You know, the reason why he sent them out two by two, again, some of them needed those nets that, again, needed two people
Right.
to bring in the mass. And that's what I would say to any ministry. Teach people to grow, not to hinder them to be up under a certain rule and hoping, and you got all these, the deacons and everybody sitting up there jockeying for position to see who's going to be the next pastor of the church. No, teach them to go build another church.
Well, like you had said, the Pharisees and the Sadducees had already did that.
Right.
They already did that formality type thing, and it did
Didn't
not
work.
work.
Did not
And
work.
God came back and said, that's not what I'm calling you to do. And even when He had said, I'll tear down this temple in 3 days and I'll rebuild it.
Hmm.
What was He saying? I'm tearing all this stuff down.
Right. Well,
I know he was speaking about himself, but he was always saying all of that past stuff,
right.
all of that former stuff, all of this body type stuff, all of this fleshy
Well,
type stuff. I'm breaking that stuff
right.
down, and then I'm going to rebuild it on a spiritual ground.
Well, and not only that, you had the Pharisees and everybody. They were telling people who can and who can't come into
Right,
the synagogues.
right,
Or if you had one leg, or you were blind, you couldn't speak, you couldn't come to synagogue. You had to be one of the elite to attend the services.
right.
And that what it's not what it's about. Again, teach people around you to go out, and and that's how God's word spread. His disciples went out, they started new churches. And as they started new churches, Paul started many churches and left. He didn't like, oh, this is my church. No, he started them. He left somebody in charge. He kept pushing, going to start new ones.
Right.
And that's what we all should do. Get things started, have the people who we teach go out and start things as well. And that's how the knowledge and the understanding of God spreads in the world.
That's how you pay it forward.
That's again, that's how you pay it forward. Not by binding people up under a ministry for 20, 30 years, saying, study under me and listen to me preach for 20, 30 years, or when I'm sick, you can step in. No, it doesn't work that way. God's word, again, is for all of us. He has given his word to all of us. It's in our hearts. And that's why he said the understanding is within our hearts, because we have the understanding. We just have to bring it forward. You have to release the binds. Yeah, yeah, the bondage that holds us captive in ministries. And I pray to God that nothing of that sort ever happens in this ministry. And I pray to God that He gives me the vision to see that, the discernment to see that, to make sure it doesn't happen. And if it does happen, for me to, keep people pushing. Not to say I'm kicking them out of the church, but hey, let's go start a ministry for you. Let's go start a ministry for this person. So people will start to, the more you get in, again, we're casting nets.
Right.
I can't be the only fisherman in the United States of America. You need people. There's many lakes, rivers, and
no, we're working together.
exactly,
We're
and
not working separately.
exactly, we're all working together for the common cause. So
it's to save souls.
Absolutely, and I'm
and
gonna.
your own.
Yes, indeed, indeed, and I'm gonna go back and read Habakkuk for chapter 1, like I promised. Chapter 1, verses 15 through 7, well, 16, 15 through 16.
17.
I'm actually going to do 16. I'm not going to read 17.
Okay.
Okay? So, Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. They take up all of them with the angle, they catch them in their net, and gather them in their drag. Therefore, they rejoice and are glad. Therefore, they sacrifice unto their net and burn incense and unto their drag, because by them their portion is fat and their meat plenteous. It said, just be happy for whatever you catch. If it's one, if it's 100, be happy for what you catch, because God will bless what you have catch, what you have caught. You will turn out, maybe you'll turn out again. I was speaking before. You take the one, start he or she on a ministry, and that grows. So that one can still be more than one, because maybe that one brings in more people to your ministry.
Right.
They probably bring 20, 30 people into your ministry. Then you start them a ministry. Now there's 50 or 100 or 200 in their ministry. So technically that one is more than what you think. It's more, the value is more than what the eye can see.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And again, I would also recommend you read Matthew chapter 22, verses 8 through 14. I'm not going to read it today, but I'm just putting it out there for you to read on your own. Um, and it ties into, again, casting the nets. Matthew chapter 22, verses 8 through 14. Okay? And that's all I have for you guys today, or all that God has for you today, for now, until you read upon it and pray upon it and meditate upon it for him to release more information to you. That's the way he works. You ask and you shall receive. Thank you for attending. God bless you from the house of David.
Bye.
Have a good